Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abby, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abbey, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abby.
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abby.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abby podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Dear Abby. I am your host and my name is Abby. Welcome to today's episode. Let me tell you what today has been. For me personally, it has been a lot of calls with insurance companies and medical groups and doctor's offices because I've just been having insurance claims denied, even though my insurance says it should cover it. So, which has been a little bit stressful along with last minute wedding stuff. And I have decision fatigue, I think, where I'm exhausted of making decisions. Like my brain is mush. My brain feels like mush. Like I feel like it's just like if you mash up bananas, that's how it feels, the function of it. So today we are talking about a common experience, I think, when you've had OCD or some illness that's exhausting and can be very debilitating. And even when you feel better from it, there's still like residue left over and maybe things still feel heavy. And also sometimes it can cause a lot of anger and almost discouragement towards the future. When you feel discouraged and maybe you're scared that you're never going to get better, or maybe you don't even really care right now, at least that's how it feels. I wanted to share some tips from my experience and also what I'm currently experiencing and how I kind of pull myself out of that rut when I still have OCD. So I wanted to talk about that, but focusing on not giving up. You'll only get better as much as you put effort into getting better. And you can't just think your way into getting better. You have to do it. And that's a big struggle point, I think, for a lot of us, especially who have been experiencing it for a long time. We're going to talk about that later. And then also we'll probably segue into a little bit of talking about how I got really angry with people. And I felt like everything was really unfair for a while when I first got diagnosed, because I was like, oh my gosh, I've had it my whole life. No one ever knew. And what if someone had intervened when I was younger? Like, how different would my life be now? And that really was aggravating to me. And I really had to wrestle with that emotion and with that feeling of anger. And like I missed out on so much, and kind of my small little journey with that and how I feel about that now. Okay, so before that though, I wanted to give a quick life update. I don't really have that much other than the whole insurance thing, which is like kind of not fun to talk about. So I'm not going to talk about it, but basically I'm just calling left and right. Everyone's giving me different answers. Classic insurance stuff. But more fun stuff is my bachelorette weekend is tomorrow. Well, this weekend, I guess. That should be really fun. I'm very excited about that. My sister has planned out like a whole weekend. I'm imagining something incredible, even though I genuinely was like, I would be fine to do anything. I don't need anything that like crazy. I would be fine with anything, but something that I'm learning. Sometimes when people do really big, nice things, I don't know how to respond. I used to have a hard time receiving it, and I still sometimes do. It's like a habit to just reject it almost, but I've learned how offensive that is to other people. And just, I don't like when I try to do something nice and then someone's like, is weird about it or doesn't just accept it. And I understand both sides, but I'm rewiring my brain slowly to be super receptive to gifts. And if someone gives me something that sometimes I don't necessarily feel like I deserve for whatever reason, or I just don't, it's just really nice and it comes out of left field, I take a second to process, but I am so much better now at receiving it and really believing in somebody's love that they're pouring out or giving to me in some form. People have just been so kind and generous with me, and I'm trying to process it all because I sometimes take a second to process the kindness now. I don't know why, but that's just what's happening. And so I'm being very gentle with myself and reminding myself that this has always been something that's hard for me, that it's okay if it takes a second for me to like receive it and understand it and, believe it and trust it. And that's okay. And I can get to a place where I can receive it. And so, yeah, I'm just really grateful. And so I don't want to sit here and be like, oh man, you shouldn't have done that. It's like can be so hurtful to the person who's giving stuff to you, because they know what they're doing and they're purposefully doing it. The people that love you, really love you, they're giving it to you and they don't need anything in return. They're giving it to you because they want to show you that they love you and it feels good for them because they're pouring something into you, and that's a beautiful thing. But it's also okay if it takes a second to receive it, if it's something that's hard for you to do, is what I'm telling myself basically. That being said, my mom and my sister, I don't know who exactly started it, but basically because I didn't have a bridal shower, my mom wanted to do something nice. And so she reached out to some like friends, family members, extended family, some like people that I used to know, and asked if they wanted to donate to like a bride bundle. Anyways, and she showed up and she was like, hey, I have a gift for you. And I'm like, okay. I thought she was just being dumb. Like I left like my shoes there or something, because I didn't know what to expect. And then she brings, she like gives me a bouquet of flowers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so nice. Thank you. And then she proceeds to hand me, and my mom's on FaceTime. And I was like, are you proposing to me? Am I pregnant? Hold on. Am I pregnant? That's what I was initially thinking. Do you know something I don't know? And then she gave me like a cute makeup bag that's filled with a bunch of gift cards to like get a massage, to get my nails done, to get a spray tan, and all of these things that I am not kidding. Like earlier that day, I was feeling so overwhelmed with everything, with like the insurance thing and medications and wedding stuff and wanting to just relax, but then having a hard time. And I wanted to get a massage, and I was like, I don't think I can afford that like right now. I just can't afford it on top of everything else. And so I was like, I think I'm just going to have to not get one, and like, that's okay. And I'll just have to relax some other way. I was just stressed about those small things. Anyways, and so basically she just gave me like a angel gift bag from people who had just donated some money to make me feel special and feel loved. And I definitely felt that. I mean, again, it took me a second because I just was shocked. And so I still have to reach out to everybody because I want to say thank you, because I really appreciated it. Because now I actually get to relax a little bit before the wedding. It helped me realize that I still have a lot of shame or a lot of guilt, like chronic guilt, because it was so hard for me to receive it at first. But it also and it brought to my attention a lot of things that I'm grateful that like came to my, I don't know, awareness. Like I'm aware of it now. And one of those things is what we're talking about, which is feeling like you kind of start to give up a little bit and you feel frustrated or anger or like you're mad at how unfair life can feel sometimes and life can be sometimes. And that starts to like fog up your heart, and that starts to stain your perspective on life. And I've talked about this definitely before. I think I just had more of like a breakthrough of something that's actually actionable. And I really understood what was happening. Like, why do I feel so guilty for accepting this? And also why is it so hard for me to accept good things? And also, why do I still, and why am I still feeling so much anger, like towards, I don't even know what. So that'll segue into the meat of the episode. When I first started treatment, I didn't really think about how much this had affected me in like a negative way. It didn't have a lot of negative feelings with it. For some reason, when I'd think of my, like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. Like, I've done this since I was a little girl, like since I can remember, blah, blah, blah. And it was very uplifting and enlightening. And I felt lighter and I understood myself more. And that was really helpful for me to get through that horrible place I was in. And then it kind of started to plateau a little bit, where I started to really think about how much it's affected me. And then when I started to recover, I'm like, wait, so many things that I'm doing was because I'm like driven by this fear and this like obsessive control over everything. Or like I have so like I want my reality to be this one specific thing, and I can't accept it if it's not. I was like a control freak mentally. And I was so anxious with people around me. And so I started, and so with that, it just started to grow on me how annoyed. I don't know. I just started to focus on all the negative in my life. And that was like, I think it was a necessary process, because that just happens when you start to understand like, oh my gosh, wait, that's why I do that. And that slowly started to build up more and more and more and more until I felt very like weighed down by only negative feelings about my past. And I think I started to get false memory OCD, where my brain would basically think of, okay, what obsession do you have now? And is that because of something in your past? Okay, what obsession is this? Is that because you did something in your past? Or it was because someone else did something horrible to you? It started to put blame on family members. It started to put blame on relatives like that I don't even really know. It just would like be trying to find something almost. It would like pull a memory that I'm pretty sure is a real memory, but then it would like twist it, and I would start to get a bad feeling with it. And then it would like twist the memory, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not what happened, but like, stop doing that. You know, you're making me feel crazy. And then it just kept doing that like over and over again in different memories. And I started to feel that starts to drive you like crazy a little bit. And that started to really continue to bog me down. And I started to feel like gaslit by my own brain, which I know is a buzzword, but it really does feel like your brain is kind of making you feel crazy, but you know better. And I'm sure of my memories, but OCD is so set on trying to find, okay, this one event is why everything bad has happened to you, or this one tiny event is why you now have all of this shame and guilt. And if you could just think about this the right way, or if you could just remember this the right way, then you could get it all fixed in therapy or whatever. And it's like, I don't think that's actually the case. And I don't think there's really anything like that. Maybe there is. I don't know. I don't know all the answers. But this whole rumination, trying to go back into my memory and trying to like fix my life from way back till now was not helping. And it's not getting me anywhere. It's getting me more stuck. And it was getting me more angry and less trusting of people around me, which was not a fun game to be playing. So then my OCD started to attack like my family, my mom, my dad, my siblings. It started to blame everybody else. And that made me start to feel very lonely and very angry with everybody for not really a good reason, even though, you know, there are good reasons to be angry. People can be pretty terrible. But I was like only just because of where my brain was and where my heart was, it was like that was the only thing I was focusing on, was all the bad stuff that anybody ever did to me. It's like I was consumed by it, and a part of me didn't really care. Like I just was like, I don't really care about this. Like it's like my brain's like, but this is so important. Like if you just figure this out, if you just figure out this relationship, if you just figure out if this is good or not, if you just figure, then all the pieces will come together. You'll have this aha moment in therapy or by yourself, and then everything will be solved, and you'll never feel confused again, and you'll never be uncertain again. I mean, and that sounds amazing, doesn't it? I mean, that's why it gets you, because it's like, that would be nice. And it's like, well, I could do that for you. And then it just like doesn't do it for you. I think also just the general exhaustion of OCD and being tricked by it again, and then being like, okay, so then what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? What do I actually find important? And there's just so many ups and downs with it. It can become very discouraging, which can make you feel sometimes annoyed or angry or just bogged down. I think I just like was focusing on all the unfairness in the world, and there is that definitely. But focusing on that is not going to fix that. And also, you can't really fix all of that. You can't fix all the unfairness. And you can, and if you want to try, you have to do it first within yourself. And then that will start to manifest outside of yourself. And then you can actually start to change people and change things because you are actually changing. instead of like trying to force some change or act like you are truly changed just to try to, I don't know, sometimes we think our way into change versus like actually changing. So anyways, I was reading a book and I recognized, and that was around the time where they gave me the gift, and I was just like, why do I feel so undeserving? Why is this so hard for me to accept? And instead of shaming myself, I just kind of got curious about why is this so hard for me to receive this and to believe that people just do nice things because they care about you, and also they're just good people. Sometimes I think it's easier to lie to ourselves and say, you know, people can be selfish and people don't actually really care and all of that stuff. And I think it's just easier because then we don't have to face ourselves and realize that we could care more and we could actually be kinder to other people and we could do more and give more, and also probably be a lot happier because we can be less self-obsessed and obsessed with what people think about us and our perception. So I just got super honest with myself and realized I was starting to realize that I really needed to live and truly start to try to change my heart posture to loving humans. And that sounds so vague and like, yeah. But genuinely, I feel like sometimes when you've been hurt consistently and things feel unfair, you start to like not trust the human race, and you start to not trust that people are good and that things can be good. Sometimes I lie to myself, or I'm like not totally truthful with myself at how much better of a friend I can be, a sister I can be, and be less self-consumed about what they're thinking of me, and just start to really try to be honest that I could do better at all of those things. It can be hard. It's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. But if you do it in a non-shameful way towards yourself, and if you do it in like, this is going to make me feel better. Like I'm going to live more aligned. I'm going to live more true to myself. And I'm going to have deeper connections with people. And if you think you don't need connections, like I sometimes do, I just think that is such a lie, because at times where I've opened my heart and I want and I strive to make deep connections with people, I am so much happier versus when I'm like, oh, I'm totally fine. Like I don't need anyone. I don't need any connections. Yes, you do. I promise you, since the dawn of man, that is like the most important thing that people need. I just don't want to live my life and miss out on like what's actually around me, and not let the dumb things get in the way of what actually I care about and what other people care about. I really had to like dig deep, and I'm starting to really try to smash all of these really unhelpful perspectives and thoughts and thought patterns of thinking people aren't good. I mean, I don't think everyone's bad. Like logically, I know, but it's like there's a part of my heart, or there's a part of me that feels like still so closed off, that feels so bitter still. And I'm terrified of that part. But I'm learning to not be terrified, but to kind of be an observer of it, you know, that whole thing. And then you're able to really just kind of see it for what it is, and then realize that you still are able to work on seeing people in a better light. So what I mean by fall in love with humans and start to love the human race is sometimes we can get trapped on focusing on all the bad things that people do. And sometimes we can get trapped on looking at all the unfairness and looking at all the things, and you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. With the people that you love, with the people that you don't know, with the people that you do know, we can sometimes get caught in that. And I think that is where you create like a very miserable cycle. It's not fun to live with yourself when that is how you are thinking about others, because that's going to be how you're thinking about yourself. And you're missing like a whole 180 perspective of people. And you're missing like the sweetness in people when you do that. I've had to really be honest with myself where I'm trying to protect myself. So I try to be like, no one actually really cares to get close to me. Like all of these protective lies that I kind of tell myself. And I'm starting to knock those down, you know, and be honest with myself and realize I could have a lot of really deep, meaningful connections, and I can develop a lot of better, stronger relationships with the people around me and the people that I don't even know yet that I might meet in the future. And I don't want it to, and by the way, I don't like hate people. It's not that. It's genuinely not that. I want to be more open and receive and give and not be so stuck in this like OCD world in my head. That's really it. And so when I am stuck in it, then I'm more distrusting of people, and I'm a little bit more anxious, and I'm more closed off. And I don't want to do that anymore because I'm living in freaking la la land, but I want to live in reality. And then the last thing I wanted to say with this before we do a Dear Abby is, along with when you feel discouraged or things are unfair, it's tempting to go to like a victimhood place. And I think there's a lot of value in recognizing that you are tired of something and that you are exhausted and that something is hard. And you can let that emotion out however you need to. And no one should judge you for that, because that's a very powerful thing to let out, because that kind of helps you move forward. Every time I've turned to like this extra layer that you add on top of that, like you just are preventing yourself from changing. And I every time I would take a layer after that and start to put on shame and guilt tripping myself and all of that stuff that I've done for a long time, not really knowing what I was doing, just like was trying to protect myself from something, or just became a habit because it's just what I got used to. It's what I knew. Every time I'd add that layer, that is where I just would be more selfish. I would not listen to what other people were saying. I would take everything offensively. I just was in one track mind, and not in a good way. I'd also just carried more self-loathing and shame and anger because I was mistreating myself so much and so often. And I didn't actually let myself ever feel happy, or I feel like I was doing something bad if I let myself feel happy or free. And that made me mad, again, to myself. And then therefore I was mad at everybody else because I wasn't happy, and you guys are happy, but like, how come you're not worrying, and how come I have to worry about this stuff? And it's like, that's where I was. I don't really go back to that place as intensely now. I've been in a way different place mentally, but there's still residue of that. I actually don't remember where I was going with that, but I wanted to share that instead of giving up or starting to shame myself or do the things that maybe might feel more comfortable because that's all you've known, or that's what's easier for you, is to, start to make yourself feel bad, and that whole pattern starts to show up again instead of going down the victim route. And yes, you could probably justify it in a million different ways, but I just don't want anybody to give up the belief that their future is bright and that they can be so happy, and that they can feel peace and rest and comforted and live a very full feeling life. Don't let the pressure of that or the heaviness of that steal anything away from you. And if it does steal it away for a second, take it back. You can empower yourself to not give up and to not lose sight of hope. And some people don't like hope, but like my whole life I've learned about hope. And I can feel such a difference when I have hope versus when I give up hope, because I'm like, this is unfair. My life is unfair, all of that thing. And when I actually choose to have hope, and when I'm like, okay, you know what? My future is bright and I will conquer this. And someday I will feel 10 times better than I do right now. I will. And I have to believe that. Just don't give up on what you want, what you really desire from this life. Don't give up, and don't let too much time go by to really be honest with yourself and really start to make those changes, whatever they are. And if that's with OCD, don't wait to start doing exposures and take that seriously. You cannot think your way out of OCD. No matter how much you think, you cannot think your way out of it. And that might feel uncomfortable, and you might not, and it does not feel good sometimes to hear that, because you're going to have to do something that you may not have done a lot and you might have never done. But that is the way out, and you have to believe, because that'll help you take action, and then you'll actually see what works. So don't give it up. Your life isn't over. If you have really heavy negative feelings and you want to go and you don't know how to like get over them or get through them, you can ask for help, find support through a therapist or somebody that knows what they're talking about. I don't know. I do not have the knowledge to help with that stuff, but there is help. As tempting as it is to just start to not care, don't give in to that. We don't have any of that. Even if it's hurt, even if you're scared you're going to get hurt again, that's better than just shutting all feelings off for the rest of your life. Don't give up on OCD recovery. Do not give up on it. Even if you think you're already there, don't give up on what you want next. Maybe you feel recovered from OCD, and if so, great. Now you can do something else and you don't give up on something else. If you want to feel even better, if you want to get even better, you can do that and you have full power to do that. Okay, well, I hope any of that made sense. I'm going to get off of my soapbox and let's do a Dear Abby. Okay, this is a text, but just so you know, I do have my phone now. So if there was an email, I would be using that thing. Okay, Dear Abby, I was diagnosed with OCD about a year ago. Understanding my diagnosis with a therapist has been both freeing and painful. Recently, I joined my child's school board and encountered a difficult person. She dismisses my suggestions, calling them bad ideas or saying they won't work. This triggers my OCD because she doesn't provide realistic reasons for vetoing them, making me extremely uncomfortable around her. That's fair. I've considered resigning and writing a letter about my experience because she has crossed several boundaries, like blocking fire exits at school events, mocking me by calling me the fire marshal, and posting my child online despite my opt-out. Okay, that's crazy. I feel like there has to be someone that you can report that to or something within the school, or just say this is what she did. However, I fear quitting might lead to retaliation against my child. How do you manage OCD while dealing with a triggering person? Okay, that is a hard question. Sometimes, I'm going to sound like a real wise guy. Sometimes these triggering people can be, this sounds bad, but you can sometimes use that experience and those people as like a tool to learn how to manage and work with difficult people. I don't know the right answer, but I would want to do the same thing where I would want to leave and just be like, I'm done with this. And sometimes, and you might get to a point, and maybe you're at that point where it's like, that actually feels like it's going to be the most helpful for you. But if you're kind of just running away from being triggered, I think that's only going to cause more pain and frustration down the road. I think that you are more than capable of handling people like that. Sometimes our OCD can make us, or just our brains sometimes can make us feel like this is uncomfortable. I don't know exactly what to do about this. So let's just like get out. And fair enough if that's what you feel like you should do. But I think this is a good opportunity to kind of take your power back from this person. And you can still feel triggered and take your power back. If she says something or does something that's being rude, you can use that as a time to not take it personally, or to not let it actually start to affect your whole day. And that's easier said than done, because I'm sensitive. If someone does something, it does kind of affect me for a little bit. But with people that are that miserable to be with because they are just, you just don't get them. You're just like, what, why, and what, and who, and for why, for what are you doing all of that stuff for? But if you actually really wanted to be on the school board, you are allowed to be there just as much as she is. And so don't let her steal that space from you if that's an important place for you, and if you want to be there for your children or wherever, or whatever the reason is why you want to be on the school board. Don't let someone push you off of somewhere that you feel like you need to be or that you want to be, and where you can make a good change. I would say figure out a good way to release those heightened emotions after an encounter or after a day where you've had to spend with her or something. Figure out, like, actually try different ways of how to healthily release that frustration and that like energy and that heightened, that anxiety, and then make a game plan. Like, okay, if you wanted to, then this is all if you want to stay on the school board. What has made me anxious in the past with this person? Okay, when she undermines me, or when she makes me feel, you can break it down like, okay, when she says this, it makes me feel this way. Like you're a little kid, but that stuff works. And so I feel like sometimes that's helpful, because then you know what will trigger you, and then you make a plan. So that way when that happens, and sometimes we make a plan and we don't execute, but that's the most important part, is you actually execute the plan. Okay, so don't do this and then don't execute. You actually have to execute it. Saying this from someone that has a hard time with following through with homework. because I tried to think my way out of it, which doesn't work. Okay, I'm going to drive myself crazy because it doesn't work. And think about how you want to react next time and what will make you feel empowered and proud and safe, kind of within your own experience, your own body. And so that way, when it happens, you're a little bit more prepared, and it's still going to feel really triggering, and all those same feelings are going to come over you, most likely. Maybe not. I don't know. You have to be able to like validate your frustration with yourself, and also take a moment with yourself and remind yourself that this is a safe place. Like, within my body, I am safe. Like, no matter what, I am here. I am safe. And then that way, when you're with someone who's triggering you, you feel way more grounded and more centered instead of floaty and panicky and anxious. And it doesn't mean you're going to have to like them, and it doesn't mean they're going to have to be best friends with them. But I just always think with a difficult person, sometimes the way that they are helps us for future frustrating situations or frustrating people. And I think over time, your confidence will probably build being around difficult people, especially with your OCD. But you have to actually do it. Yeah, and give yourself some pep talks. And this might sound silly, but it is helpful to give yourself like a pep talk before you have a meeting or something with her. So you can do that. And you can also, when you need to leave because she's being very stressful and you're extremely triggered and you can't really calm down in the moment and it feels really big, you are okay to excuse yourself. You can excuse yourself for a little bit, calm down, center yourself, feel grounded, feel confident, and then go back in. It's okay if you need a second and if it does feel overwhelming for a little bit. The not helpful thing to do is probably to ruminate about the relationship and to ruminate about all the things that you could possibly do instead of kind of actually come up with a game plan, follow through with the game plan. And then the rest of the noise that's going on in your brain is just like, I know, I cannot figure it out, so I'm not even going to try, but thank you. See you later. Okay, well, thank you for listening to today's Dear Abbey. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy all of my podcasts. By the way, if you're ever wanting to hear something specific from the podcast, or if you want someone on or something, whatever, I mean, I don't have a team yet, but I could have my people reach out to their people. Also, if you want to support the podcast, you can share it on your story. You can tell people about it that you think would be interested. You can leave a rating or a review on Apple and Spotify, as well as you can like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, because I post all of my videos on YouTube. Thank you guys for your continued support. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Be kind to yourself. Take yourself out, have fun, or take yourself in. Watch Harry Potter, because that's what I'm going to be doing. Maybe get some ice cream. Maybe put a heating pad on your tummy because your uterus is exploding. That might be what I'm going to do this weekend. Now I want ice cream. Okay, well, love you guys. Bye. 눈치 보면서 들어가 할 때 찾아 나머진 바빠 개설레임 바꾸는 사람들 시간